What's the latest in the Israel-Hamas war? For the first time in months, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad publishes a video showing live footage taken of an Israeli hostage held in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, advances are reporting negotiations between Israel and Lebanon on a diplomatic resolution to the current situation. At the same time, Israel's new defense minister implies an expansion of the war aims in Lebanon. I'm Alon Burstein. Let's dive in. Starting with the hostage situation, on November 13th, day 404 to the war, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad published a 3-minute video showing the Israeli hostage Alexander Tropanov. This is the third time that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad has released a video featuring Tropanov, the first two being released at the end of May of this year. It was not reported when the video was recorded. However, in it, Tropanov discusses the IDF invasion of Lebanon, which began on October 6th, indicating that the video was shot in recent weeks. In the video, Tropanov discusses being in captivity for a year and the extreme scarcity of food and basic hygiene products. He states that he has developed a skin condition and skin diseases as a result of the harsh conditions, lack of soap and shampoo, he mentions, and asks that the Israeli population consider, every time they demand blocking more aid coming into the Gaza Strip, that they are actually blocking aid from the hostages as well. Tropanov also mentions that his life is in constant danger due to the IDF military activity in the Gaza Strip, stating that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad captors have kept him safe several times, even at the expense of their own safety. It's important to add that this particular facet is a repeated theme of the different hostage videos that have been released by the different organizations since the war began. Many of them have stated that their lives have been in danger primarily due to IDF bombings, and that their captors have gone to great lengths to keep them alive. Hamas has also mentioned over the past year that there are several Israeli hostages that have been killed in IDF bombings. We also know that the IDF has confirmed at least 3 hostages that were killed as a result of a bombing, not necessarily directly killed by the bombing, but a result of a bombing in a nearby tunnel. Again, those are the 3 that were confirmed by the IDF. Hamas has said many more hostages have been killed by those bombings. Tropanov mentions this as well and says that he is particularly scared of what will happen if the military starts bombing his area, or if the IDF tries to carry out a rescue operation or comes near the area that he's in. In his concluding statements, Tropanov states that the escalations in Lebanon and Iran are a plot of the Israeli government in order to distract from the hostage situation, and he asked the Israeli public to increase their demonstrations and pressure on the government, naming a variety of things like strikes and roadblocks that could be done in order to apply more pressure on the government to reach a hostage deal. In addition to this video, on that same day, November 13th, Hamas also published a 30-second video, opening with a writing across the screen stating that it has been over a year since Netanyahu promised to bring the hostages back through military pressure. The video then bounces between the images of the 6 Israeli hostages that were executed at the end of August in a tunnel in Rafah, concluding with the writing stating that they were all brought back dead as a result of Netanyahu's promise. These are the first videos published by the organizations in Gaza in months. The last videos released were released at the beginning of September. However, those were videos that had been previously shot of the 6 hostages that had been executed in August. Other than that, the previous videos released by the organizations were released at the end of May of this year. Regarding why the organizations are releasing these videos now, and I emphasize this is now analysis, it is possible that this is an attempt to put the hostage situation, quote unquote, back on the table, especially in light of the US election results last week. Many of the future appointments announced by President-elect Trump thus far have been of people who have expressed support for Israel's military operations, both in the Gaza Strip and more broadly. It is possible that the organizations in Gaza are hoping to increase pressure on Israel to reach a hostage deal during the last few months of the Biden administration, before the major reshuffle and the pressure balance on Israel shifts quite radically coming January. This may also be associated with the fact that Qatar has withdrawn from the negotiations, and when this happened already in April, there was a lot of pressure on Qatar to return to negotiations. However, this time, Israel seemingly just accepted this. It is possible that the organizations are trying to get Israel and the United States to ask Qatar to rejoin the negotiations by putting the hostage situation back on the table and calling upon Israelis to come out to more demonstrations. Again, that is speculation on my part. However, it is important to note that in the past, hostage videos have only been released by the organizations at critical strategic times during negotiations. Right now, negotiations are completely stalled, so it is very likely that there is some significance to the timing for both Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas releasing videos on November 13th. We may find out more about that in the coming days. Just as a reminder, there are currently 101 hostages still remaining in the Gaza Strip. Of them, the IDF has confirmed that 36 are dead. Intelligence estimates suggest that about half of them remain alive. According to most estimates, most of them are likely being held in the area of Israel-Hezbollah, that is the central areas of the Gaza Strip, the last major Palestinian city that the IDF has not invaded in a ground invasion. Meanwhile, the IDF is continuing to expand its operation in northern Gaza. However, I'm not going to focus on that in this summary. If you are interested in what's going on in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip and the possible implications of this, check out my most recent video that I uploaded on November 9th about Israel's quote-unquote general's plan. What I am going to focus on, however, is the Israel-Hezbollah front going on in northern Israel and in southern Lebanon. The ongoing bombardments between the sides have continued over the past several days. Hezbollah has fired hundreds of rockets, missiles, and drones at Israel each day. The IDF has also continued to carry out well over 100 airstrikes throughout Lebanon in each and every day, while the ground operation also continues in southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, alongside the fighting, over the past several days, there's been increased optimism reported with regards to the possibility of reaching a diplomatic resolution to the IDF invasion and escalations in Lebanon. The resolution centers around a draft that I reported on back in November 1st, which involves the reinforced implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701 that was issued in 2006. This resolution does not allow for any armed presence of any actor except the Lebanese military south of the Litani River that is adjacent to Israel's northern border. The deal involves a gradual deployment of the Lebanese military alongside the IDF withdrawal from southern Lebanon, and the establishment of mechanisms to both report on the progress of the deal's implementation and to ensure its implementation. Again, if you want to know more about what was reported when a draft of this deal was leaked, check out that summary from November 1st. With regards to the advances that have been reported over the last several days, on November 10th, it was reported that Israel and the United States have exchanged drafts of the agreement and that there is broad agreement on what the deal is going to look like, and that in parallel, the U.S. envoy to the region, Amos Hochstein, has exchanged drafts with the Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati, as well as with the Speaker of the House, Nabiha Berri, which is extremely important because Nabiha Berri is considered to be representing Hezbollah's interests in these negotiations. The advances reportedly focus on Israel's demand that the IDF will be granted authority to enforce the deal and stop Hezbollah from rearming itself in southern Lebanon if the Lebanese army fails to do so. According to what has been reported, Israel and the United States are working on a quote-unquote annex to the deal that will guarantee Israel's authority to carry out such actions under certain conditions, i.e., if the Lebanese army does not manage to enforce the deal and stop Hezbollah taking up positions in southern Lebanon, and in turn, Israel's complaints about this are not taken care of by the international mechanism. Possibly then the IDF will be granted authority to act in southern Lebanon. Possibly this is being added as an annex in the hopes that the Lebanese government will be able to accept this if it is not part of the agreement itself. Washington Post reported on November 13th that Israel would like to, quote-unquote, give Trump an immediate win upon entering the White House, and this is part of a deal that is being cooked up between Netanyahu and Trump. It was also reported, however, that Israel has been negotiating with Russia on how Russia can play a critical role in possibly helping to reinforce the deal. Russia has a lot of influence on Iran and in Syria and could be instrumental in stopping weapon smugglings that would go to Hezbollah. Alongside this reported optimism, however, I will add that in the past days there have also been at least two developments that may call these advances into question. The first is a report in the Saudi Al-Hadith from November 10th, in which Hezbollah sources are quoted as stating that they would support a deal even if it requires the group to withdraw north of the Litani River. However, that the movement is not going to accept any deal that grants Israel authority to continue to operate in Lebanon. Now, it's important to understand that while Hezbollah is not an official party to the deal would be between technically Israel and the United States and Lebanon and the United States and other actors. Without Hezbollah's at least tacit agreement and accepting that Lebanon is going to implement this, it is very unlikely that the Lebanese government will be able to go along with the deal, and even if it went along with it, it is very unlikely we'll be able to enforce it. Thus, Hezbollah saying it will agree under certain conditions but not others may end up actually foiling the deal because that is one of Israel's red lines, that Israel will be granted authority to operate in southern Lebanon. The second development that is calling into some question the optimism is repeated statements that were made by Israel's new defense minister, tweeting on November 12th and stating explicitly on November 13th. Israel's new defense minister Israel-Katz stated that there will be no ceasefire or respite in Lebanon. However, crucially, in addition to stating that there will be no ceasefire in Lebanon, he added, and I quote, "until Hezbollah is completely disarmed," end quote. That wording is extremely important since such an aspiration to completely disarm Hezbollah is not part of Israel's declared war aims, nor is it even being negotiated or raised as part of the ongoing talks that are going on. Israel officially updated its war aims in September to include, quote, "the safe return of Israeli civilians to the northern parts of Israel," end quote, which is different than Israel's war aims as defined vis-a-vis Hamas, which include destroying the group's military capabilities. Israel's new defense minister Israel Katz is a new appointee of the Israeli prime minister and is also a very close ally of Netanyahu. So at this point, it is unclear if his statements are a way to add pressure to Hezbollah to accept the deal, lest the war aims start including disarming Hezbollah, or if this is the way of that Netanyahu and the Israeli government are trying to signal that they're not going to accept the deal unless it includes this additional aim. Either way, I will say that in my own analysis, it is very unlikely that Israel Katz would have been accidentally stating this day after day that the IDF's aims are now to also include disarming Hezbollah in Lebanon. Even if it would have been said once, it likely would have been corrected, not repeated on the next day. We'll likely learn more about this in the coming days, and if this is something that Israel is going to add to the negotiations or where that stands. However, both those things, Hezbollah setting its own terms, and these, quote unquote, slips that are coming out of Israel's new defense minister, are something to take in question when we're hearing about the different optimism with regards to a possible deal. Those are my highlights from the past several days in the Israel-Hamas war. If you find these reports informative, please do remember to send them on to anyone who you think might be interested in them. Subscribe, turn on notifications if you want to know when the reports come out. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'm Alon Burstein. I'm a visiting assistant professor and Israel Institute fellow in the Department of Political Science at Tufts University. Thanks for watching.